Okay, so now the bodice is done. As I said, it's not perfect. Wish I wouldn't have bought such cheap fabric for it, but it is what it is. It's a costume for a play, and who knows what my daughter will do with it afterwards. But it's time to move on to the skirt. Now the skirt, even though it has tons of ruffles, I've made a type of this skirt several times. Use this pattern piece right here for this, for several of the skirts of the play. At least 4 others, I think. 3 or 4 others. Anyways, so I think the front will go fairly easy. Last night I serged most of the ruffles for this part. I haven't decided how I'm going to put the ruffles on, but I have put serged the ruffles. I haven't decided if I want to gather them by machine or, by running stitches, gathering stitches, or if I want to put it through my gathering foot, or if I just want to push it through and go. But the first step is to take piece 14, which this is one of the steps I did when I was making the mock-up for the jacket, because I kind of thought I needed to do a mock-up of the skirt too. I didn't, but these pieces are already together to make it easy for the next step. So here I have the front of the skirt already done. So the next is to put the ruffles on. Oh no, next step is hem of it. To go ahead and pre-hem it, which I did put those pieces together last night too, if I can find them, which is piece 15. I used a heavier white fabric because I want it to weigh down, and I just serged one end. That's going to be the top. So basically you sew it together, right sides together, and do a full turn over, and then that's the hem. And so I'm just going to pin that on. So right sides together would be this way. And I serged it so I don't have to really hem it after I turn it over, because it says to, let me read it, stitch one lower front facing section to side edges of remaining lower front facing sections. Turn in on upper edge on lower front facing press. So that's where I serged it. With right sides together, pin facing to lower edge of foundation front, matching seams, stitch trim under stitch facing, turn facing to inside, press stitch under edge to place long basting, baste across ends. So that's basically what I'm going to do. Someone's going to come in. Okay, so I'm back. I have prepped all the pieces where I have serged them. This is the bottom layer that will have a ruffle on it. It's pinned together. I just need to sew down the sides of that. This is the middle layer, and it has no addition sides, but the ruffle goes on this. And then here's the top, which is the, which is the part that gets pleated up on the sides. The top part, and that's already to be sewn on its side, the 2 sides. I didn't serge, that's where the pen came from. I didn't serge the pleated edges because I want to pleat them up and then I'll serge it. So that's ready to be, keep losing pins. So that's ready to be sewn. And then I have prepped all my ruffles. So I have them pressed on the, turned twice on the bottom, or on the top. This is where it'll be gathered. And then I have sewn the yellow part on it. I just need to press that down. So I got that on all three of the pink ones. And then on the bottom, which is supposed to be pleats, but my daughter doesn't want pleats, so I'm gonna ruffle it. I just have turned the top over twice and the bottom over once. It's serged, so I didn't think I needed to turn it over twice, just save myself a little stress by only turning it over once. But I do need to then run them all through my gathering foot. So I'm gonna sew up the side seams for those bottom two tiers. And then I'm going to press these and throw all of this through the ruffler. When I put the gathering foot on, I have to change the tension and everything. So I try to do all of that at once as much as I can before I go to the next step. So I'm just doing these front ruffles here, and then I'll go through and prep all the back ruffles to do the back of the skirt. So I'm going to do all of that, and I'll be back. Okay, so I have the lining of the skirt down. So now I'm going to put these ruffles, this bottom ruffle on, and I'm just going to pin it down to where it would be. I think the direction showed the gathers, so I'm going to, I don't want it right at the bottom, but I don't want it right at the, I just want to leave a little bit. It showed leaving a lot, but I don't want to leave that much. So I'm going to leave like maybe, oops, sorry, you're out of the screen. I'm going to leave maybe 2 inches. So I'm just going to go along the bottom to where I leave like 2 inches hanging a little bit down, maybe just an inch. I don't want it to be too much hanging down. And this, because it's gathered instead of pleated, there might be a lot of it at the end that I can cut off and use for something else to keep me from having to make another ruffle. Need a ruler. I'm going to sew that on, and then I'll come do the next step, which I've done the next 2 steps, so I'll just go to the next part. I'll be right back. Actually, I could probably go ahead and go ahead, because you know me, I like to pin everything at once and then go to the sewing machine once. So the next layer is this one, and it has so on the bottom of this is supposed to be this ruffle. And it says to sew it, pin wrong side of ruffle to the right side of lower flounce, placing gathering line 1/4 inch above lower edge and 1 seam at lower circles. Okay, so you want this right at the bottom. Okay, so that one is done and ready to be sewn up. And it did pretty good at the amount to gather. I just have a little bit extra, which is really good. Beats hand gathering, that's for sure. Sewing the 2 gathering stitches and pulling it by hand, this is way faster, way easier, especially when you're doing a lot of ruffles. I think with this one, doesn't show too. I think I'm going to go ahead and put the ruffle on it. Before I do the pleating.
Mommy,
What?
we're out of,
Okay, I'll finish pinning these up, get them all sewn up, and I will be right back. Okay, so here we are. We have the lining with the ruffle. I have it laid out on my table, and it's taking my whole table. And I'm getting concerned with the fact that the next 2 layers are not that wide. So I'm going to figure out center. So I can put the center of the next one on top, because it does seem pretty wide. I don't know why it's that wide. And I don't know if I did something wrong when I seamed this, but that's at a 5/8 seam. So I don't know what the deal is, but the next layer is this one, right? Yes. Let's find the center of that. Not a huge amount, but it is a good 5 to 7 inches off the side, which shouldn't have been that much. Then I'm thinking, no, I gotta go center. Let's move this over just a little. Okay. Well, let's just go pin it down. So it says pin it down and sew up side seams. It doesn't say to sew up the top, but I think I'm going to. So I can reach it. And it doesn't say to sew at the bottom either. Just says to sew. It says pin wrong side of flounce to right side of foundation, placing edge along middle placement line as shown. So press edge in place by hand or machine. I'm going to pin it in a few places just so I have that sturdiness in the right spot. And then it says just to sew down the side seams. But I think I will do the top seam anyway. Because that makes more sense to hold it down at the top. And it's not like the top's going to be seen. So this is just like so at the top of this too, just kind of like ease it. So I'm going to sew up that, and then I'll come back and put the next layer on. Now it's this layer's turn. I guess it just depends on this layer's. Unless I bring it right to the edge, it is too narrow too. I don't get this. I get when it doesn't work right, it just kind of bugs me. Because it's not supposed to go all the way to the top. And it's supposed to only leave like 4 inches. But that's way short. What did I do wrong? That just doesn't make sense. Okay, let's do the pleating of this layer. See where it's going to fall, and then decide where I want that middle layer to be pinned to. So, to pleat this, I saved this piece for a reason. So we can mark it. So I need something to mark with my little blue chalk. So this point goes to this point, and this point goes to this point, and then this point will go to this point, and then this point will go to this point, and then this point will go to this point. Okay. Fold. And I found that I like it better if I pleat it up than if I pleat it down. I had one that I did that said to pleat down. I did not like how it laid at all. Okay, so I have the top layer. I have it all pleated up. I'm going to put it against the top. Where's the center? Front, center. Okay, I'm going to sew this piece down. Then I'll move the top piece down and pin it down and sew it down. I still don't understand why the sides, like, logically when I look at the pieces and how they had them cut, there's no way it looks like this. But how would the instructions, I hate when instructions aren't, something's wrong. Okay. which as white as the skirt is, really, it does not need to be that white. Okay, I'm going to sew that down, get the top down and get it sewn on. Then I'm going to hold it up to my mannequin and see how I like it. Okay, so I put it on the mannequin and this just hung way too low. I didn't like it. So I came back and I decided to play with this ruching a little with these pleats. So I pinned it to where these pleats would follow this seam line straight up, and then I pulled it all out and pulled the pleats out here. And I'm going to take this much off of it, and I repleated it. And I think that'll make it sit a little bit better. I'm going to pin it, and then I'm going to sew this all the way down. Then I'm going to take these out and see if it makes a difference. I might have to do some hand tacking on it later, but for right now, let's see what this does. Okay, so I'm ready for the back. I've prepped all the pieces, all the ruffles are prepped. They aren't gathered, but they're all prepped. So I have all of these. They need to be pressed and gathered. I have the base form here, and then, oh, losing pattern pieces. Here's the top, which just sits there. So does this fit this way? Oh, yeah, it goes this way. So it just sits on top. So if anything shows underneath from the ruffles or anything, so this is the top, and then the first ruffle will sit on top of it. Now I don't want to put the bow on it because I just think I don't need the bow. So, and because I shortened it and don't have the train, I probably have more ruffles than I need. So I'm going to eyeball the ruffles instead of putting where the markings is, because I did all the ruffles, but that was if it was just going to be a long train. Well, it's not going to be a long train. So I have 7 ruffles. So I'm just going to put the ruffles on here according to how I want. So I'm going to sew this piece on to get it, just sits right up on the top. So I'm going to pin it down, sew it down. I feel like I want to press the seam again before I do that. And press where I search because it's just kind of wrinkly. So I'm going to press this piece really well. And then I will pin it on, place it on, and then I will show you as I put all the ruffles on where I decide to put the ruffles. Oh, I'm going to gather all the ruffles now too, because once I finish sewing this on, I can change feet and gather all the ruffles. So here I am. I'm putting all the ruffles on the back of this dress. The gathering foot on this one made it too tight, so I have had to pull some of the gathering stitches out, but then I'm able to, like, the chunk that where it got pulled, able to put that back into like a little bit of gathers. It's not perfect, but where it's not going to be seen by anybody, I can just gather it up. I mean, the row above it covers it. So I'm hoping that once I get to the top row, I won't have this problem, and it won't be a big deal. But when I get to that, when I sew, I'm able to like do little pleats in it and make it look more like gathering stitches and just stitch it down. So I will take little tucks in that when it comes time. So I just place it where I want it. Pin it down, and then I just pull it until it goes to where I want it to. Ooh, this one took too much out, but that's all right. I want this ruffle to just hit, the yellow part hit the top of the ruffle below. And as I said, I decided to do a side closure instead of a back closure, so I sewed up the back, and I am deciding I need better material to use as the waistband, because this stuff is so cheap that it's just, I think, too much weight. It would just pull a waistband apart. So I'm going to make sure I'm going to use a thicker fabric. It's not quite the same yellow, but it's close. I'll show it to you when I get to it. And I think it'll hold up better. And where this is lined, I think it'll support that much better. This thicker fabric just did not gather as much as the other, so I can make this even tighter. So this tight top ruffle I think I can make tighter. So I'm going to have opposite that I had with the pink one. Okay, so all the ruffles are pinned on. It's pretty fancy. I'm going to sew them down, sew them on, and then I will make the waistband and make the plackets for the waistband and sew up the side seams. And I'm pretty close to being done, other than I forgot to put some trim on the bodice jacket, but I will do that simple little thing, and I think I'm going to be done. How exciting! So we're back. I have the back done. It looks so fun. So now it's pretty much sewing up the side seams together and putting a waistband on it. The side seams are connected with this weird flappy thing. I don't know what it is. On the picture, I don't know. you can't see it really well, but it's like right there on the front. On the back picture, you can see it right there. It's just kind of a weird thing. But that's what we got. So, side seams together, waistband. Oh, and I'm gonna make the waistband, I have this heavy kind of denim fabric. It's yellow. It matches close enough that I don't think, where it's just the waistband and plackets, I don't think it'll be that noticeable, but it's sturdy enough that it'll hold everything up without ripping, because this is a heavy skirt with all these ruffles. So I'm thinking this and the 2 plackets, just the closures, just to make sure. And I'm going to close it with hook and eyes. So I will have some hand sewing to do, just a little bit. But I think we're so close to being done. Yay! So I'm going to go ahead and figure out how to sew these side pieces on. Maybe I'll cut the waistband first if I have nothing on my table. Where's my big ruler? That's what felt earlier when I heard a noise. So I like to make waistbands at least 2 inches wide. So with a fold, that would be 4 inches plus, but I feel like it needs to be a wider waistband. I kind of want a 3-inch waistband or 2.5 inch. I think I'm going to go ahead and cut waistbands are my nemesis. I can never get them to be right. I don't know what it is, but they just hate me. It's weird. Some people are like, buttonholes, and I'm like, I can do buttonholes. I'm not prettiest, but I can do them. Some people are like zippers. I'm like, zippers, depending on the type of zipper, are easy. Waistbands for me, they pucker. And I think it's because I don't want to do the hand stitching to close it up in the back. But who wants to? So I will measure this to be the right length. Oh, plackets. No, I need some for plackets. Let me cut off. Let me just cut off another 4 inches. Probably won't need that much for a placket. Okay, I'm going to get the side seams. So for the side seams, since I just serged these so pretty, so they would be nice and secure down on the side, I'm going to go ahead and pin. I lose scissors constantly. Pin this to the side seam. pretty sure that's the way it's supposed to be. So I'm going to pin these both to the side seam, pull off the front, serge, or I might even serge it down the side just to clean up the side, and then pin them together. I'm going to leave about this much of an opening to get it on and off at the side seam. Okay, so I'm now pinning right front and back together. I'm kind of worried because the front had all that white that wasn't covered. So I hope it fits her. I really do. Hope it fits her. The back's a little bit shorter than the front, so I'm going to probably take a little pleat during a ruffle. It'll probably be this top one, I think, is where I'll do it. It's not that much off, but I need to make sure I pay attention so it's the same on both sides. So I think there's the part that goes down. So I think that yellow right underneath that, right underneath it, is where I'll take a little bit of a dart in, where those aren't going to want to match up. So that's all pinned together. I'm going to sew that down, but first let's get this waistband going and the plackets going. So her waist is 40.5. So 40.5, we need 1, 2, 3 inches for seam allowance and overlap. And then I want 2 plackets. One's narrow, one's going to be wide, but I want them at least 6 inches long, so double that is 8 12 looks like that's what I want. That's enough for the placket. So what I'll do with the plackets is I'll just fold them in half and sew down the two seams, turn it inside out. And got a phone call. That was rude. So I'll sew it here, turn it around, press it. Then this will sew in to the two side seams. And then they'll overlap with the snaps, or the hook and eye. So basically they'll go like, this will be sewed onto the seam and this will be sewed on, and then they'll overlap each other. If that makes sense. And so then the seam, and this butts up right against the seam allowance. I'll show it to you when I'm done. Okay, let me get that sewed. Oh, and I will go ahead and press this in half and put interfacing in it. And then I'll probably go ahead and serge it and then just put the waistband in folded together instead of one and then the other one down, because I think with all the serging in this, it's not going to matter to have one more seam serged and then sewn together. So that's how I'm going to do it. Here's the finished product of the project. So here's the waistband. I think when it's on her, this might be right here a little better. If not, I might have to put something here. There's the front. Oops, a little close. Whoa, I can't turn her. And here's the back. I'll get back in this small room so you can get a full view of the back. Now I'll show you the placket that I was talking about. So see, there's the placket and there's the placket. So they just come over and fold, and I will put a hook and eye right there and hold it in. And that's a little bit stiffer and we'll secure it down a little bit better. Let's see if I can get you full front view. I don't know, that light's coming in. I don't know if I can get back far enough to get the whole thing in.